Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things here, and we actually got some confirmation here from Robert Kirkman that, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about the whole like Negan cliffhanger at the very end of season 6, episode 16, like the finale. Andrew Lincoln mentioned it, Robert Kirkman's now talking about it, and yeah, it's all anyone's talking about right now. So Robert Kirkman actually confirmed that killing off Abraham was very, very intentional because they wanted to make you think that Glenn was actually safe, and then obviously eventually they kill off Glenn. But yeah, I want to talk about that, talk about some stuff with Andrew Lincoln and whatnot. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all of my Walking Dead content like this. Comic-Con is in like what, 20 days from now, or it's like 3 weeks from now or something like that. I'm not sure when the panel for The Walking Dead is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be the Friday because usually it is the Friday, but again, maybe it's the Saturday. I'm not entirely sure. 3 weeks from now is the 25th, so I don't think it's going to be then. So it could be on July 26th or 27th. It's going to be one of those days for sure. Next week is when they're announcing all the panels, the week of July 8th, so I'm not entirely sure of the day. It could be, July 11th, exactly 2 weeks before, Comic-Con starts, or maybe it's July 8th, the start of the week. I'm not entirely sure, but expect a lot of news coming for The Walking Dead. Like, they're going to start to really ramp this up here. There's going to be a lot of interviews. Like, that's the one thing with Comic-Con, like, before the event, leading up, there's always, like, Entertainment Weekly articles that come out, usually like the week of, maybe it's like the week before, but there's going to be a lot to talk about this month. So obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content, breaking down all the latest news. And the latest here comes from Robert Kirkman, who actually discusses Abraham and Glenn's death. And I saw this here from Screen Rant, so I'll leave a link down below to the article. I guess I would see a lot of this in the Walking Dead Deluxe comics. That's the one thing that I guess I don't necessarily collect anymore, is I don't collect Walking Dead comics. I was collecting the deluxe issues for a while. I don't know, I would go back and do it, but I have to go back like 50 issues because I think they're on like issue 91 now. So I'd have to go back quite a bit. But apparently in the letter hack section of the comic here, this is what he had to say regarding Glenn and Abraham's death here, or I guess more specifically on Abraham's death. Is it okay to say that was my pitch? I wanted to give the audience a sense of safety. I wanted Glenn fans to have a moment of, oh, like they're not going to kill Glenn, only to be shocked very soon after. The goal was to make a death you should be expecting if you're a comic book fan still surprising. Better or for worse, it succeeded in that. And yeah, for sure it did succeed in that. I think a lot of people, once Abraham died, thought that was it. I personally, at the time, I remember thinking that it was probably going to be like 2 deaths or something like that, because I just felt like, that they needed to sort of make it bigger for that moment, because everyone was expecting Glenn, and if it was going to be Glenn, that was just sort of my thinking, was that, like, if they're going to kill off Glenn, it's not that surprising. You should just kill him off in the finale, right? Like, not do the cliffhanger. And so if they just kill off Glenn here, it's not going to be that big of a moment, so they're probably going to kill off another character. But, in order to do that, you would have to kill off a pretty big character. You're not going to really kill off a bigger character than Glenn. Like, besides, I'm trying to think of all the characters in that scene, like, the only other characters that would have been bigger deaths than Glenn in that moment, I feel like would have been Rick or Daryl, really. I guess there was Michonne as well, and Carl, right? Like, they were both in that scene. So I just, again, you're not going to kill off any of those characters. I mean, I guess you could have technically. I mean, you're not going to kill off Rick. Glenn's death was just sort of perfect for the moment. Like, it was something that really, like, it worked so well in the comic book. Like, it really did. But in the show, it just didn't work so well. And I talked about this the other day, so I'm not going to go into this at all. But I do think it's because of the cliffhanger. And so, Robert Kirkman saying this, that was sort of, that was sort of intentional there, of like, oh, we're going to kill off Abraham here. And everyone's like, oh, there you go. Like, they're not going to kill off Glenn. So we're going to have Glenn in All Out War and all that. It's going to be really cool to see like what they do with his story. And then eventually he sort of dies. I mean, I guess like you are going to upset a lot of fans. Like, to me personally, like I've been seeing a lot of people sort of, because Andrew Lincoln, as soon as he made those comments, like, it really, like, that's all anyone's talking about right now. There's articles written everywhere right now of, just quoting him in which, he said that they sort of over-egged the omelet or whatever, right? And I just, seeing all the response to it, everyone is saying that, like, yeah, that's why I stopped watching. Like, Glenn was an amazing character. But the one comment I see more than anything is, no, it's because they killed off Carl. Like, with Glenn's death, I thought that was fine. The cliffhanger was maybe not the best thing to do, but it was Carl's death. Like, that's the reason why I stopped watching. So I think Carl's death probably hurt the show more than anything. Glenn's death and all of that, yes, like, people got sort of scared off from that, and I think that's fine, because because, you know, you don't want to limit yourself in terms of just what you can do on The Walking Dead. And that was such a big moment. But killing off Carl, I think, definitely hurt the show's overall story. It was such a bad decision. Like, man, I can't believe how bad of a decision that was. I think they did sort of, like they fixed it afterwards with Judith, right? Making her older and all of that. Like, they did somewhat fix it, and the story is exciting right now, but they are still, like, you know, if Carl was still around to this day, you know, we could have a Carl spinoff, or there could be other stories with Carl right now, right? Like, that would have been amazing to have Carl during the Whisperer arc and all of that. Like, just to tell all of those same stories. I don't even know if Andrew Lincoln would have left The Walking Dead if Carl was still there as well. So there is that, but also I don't know if we would have gotten all the spinoffs. I mean, I feel like we probably still would have gotten the spinoffs, right? Like, I think that makes sense. Maybe the ones who live wouldn't have existed, but we probably would have had Rick for the entirety of all 11 seasons. But the whole reunion aspect to everything, and like, it's very interesting to think of like how much would have been different. Though I feel like Andrew Lincoln probably still would have left, because he was wanting to leave at some point in season 8, and he was talking about it for a couple of seasons before that as well, right? Because he wanted to do movies, and I feel like that's a big thing with Andrew Lincoln in terms of, you know, how he approaches The Walking Dead, is that he doesn't want to be filming it every single year, every single summer, and just committing to something like that, which makes sense because his family, you know, like, he has to be away from his family to film all of that. And so it makes sense to me that, you know, in terms of doing like these one-off limited series things here and there, that would be the approach, because that's what he's doing in general as an actor. Like you have to go to certain locations to film this and that. So the next spinoff, whenever that comes out, I'm sure it's not going to be filmed in New Jersey, because I know they were complaining about how cold it was and whatnot. They're going to be in a different location most likely, and I'm sure they'll film for a couple of months and then again take a couple of years off and maybe do another story afterwards. But it's interesting to see Robert Kirkman actually talk about that. There was something else too that I kind of found really interesting with Michael Rooker, and this comes from CBR.com, so I'll leave a link down below if you actually want to check out this article. But apparently he made some sort of comment, I don't know if it was to TMZ, it seems like it was to TMZ, but basically I think they asked him about something unrelated. I think it was another actor on another show or whatever, but he just had to say, you know, like, we do The Walking Dead, I got killed off, I don't know why, they don't know how to write for the character, so I move on. And I've seen a lot of like the old Walking Dead cast, you know, in the first couple of seasons anyways, be sort of upset about, you know, I guess the way their characters, I guess, were killed off the show. I've seen some mention just from like John Bernthal and like Sarah Wayne Callies, you know, who play obviously Shane and Laurie. There's been some, you know, talk about a lot of that. To me, I guess I never really understood it. I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but I also look at it like, well, the characters die at that moment in the comic book. So like, you obviously want to keep those moments there, right? I think the only deaths to me that didn't really make a lot of sense, and I think they should have waited a lot on, was Merle's and Andrea's. I think they could have waited a while, because like killing off Merle, man, like the potential there for Merle and for Daryl was really like, you know, they could have won a couple of more seasons for sure. Like I think having Merle around the All Out War arc would have been amazing. Like they could have built up that story so much more. Andrea as well was such a big character in the comic book. You could have kept her around. Like, you really could have kept her around for a while, but they killed her off in season 3, and obviously there's a lot of issues there. Like, if you go back and you look at, you know, the decision to kill Andrea off in that moment and all that, like, there's a lot of stuff there that people weren't fans of. So Glenn Mazzara, I believe, was actually the showrunner back then. I think he only was the showrunner for season 3, and then, they got rid of him. And then obviously Gimple took over in season 4, which I think overall was a smarter decision, because again, you don't know with showrunners, and I think that's the thing. Like Gimple, I'll see a lot of people saying that, oh, Gimple will ruin this story, this and that, and you know, it's the way he tells stories. I think that's my only issue, is just like there's certain ways that he tells Walking Dead stories that I'm not the biggest fan of. Sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm not. But I still think overall how he handled The Walking Dead and all the spinoffs and everything since season 4 has been pretty good. I'm not going to say it's been a really amazing, because obviously we got shows like, you know, World Beyond and Fear the Walking Dead for a couple of seasons was really bad, right? And Tales of the Walking Dead could have been better, but I still think the overall direction was, you know, I still think pretty great. Because if you actually look at Glenn Mazzara, who took over, you know, in season 3 or whatever, like he killed off Andrea there, right? And Merle as well. Like if there was other showrunners, they could have killed off certain characters and made really insane decisions. Like imagine Daryl dies in season 5 or 6 or something like that, right? Like I think Gimple overall knows what he's doing, and he understands, you know, this world pretty well here. And obviously Frank Darabont, you know, everyone's going to say he was like the best showrunner, and I think he was a really amazing showrunner, but I don't know about him running The Walking Dead for just all of it. You know, I think he would have been good for just sort of what he did there. I don't know if he has a lot of interest in telling the story over like however many seasons and then doing all the spinoffs and all that, right? Like I'm not sure he would be that interested in it. Maybe, but yeah, I don't know. And then Angela Kang, obviously, like she really, like, she fixed The Walking Dead when it was really at its worst. I really hope she gets to do another Walking Dead show at some point in the future, because obviously she was amazing on The Walking Dead, and there are some issues I have with season 11, but I don't really think it's related to the way that she, you know, was running the show. I think it was more because they had to wrap up everything so fast because they were doing the spin-offs and all of that, right? So, but yeah, anyways, hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.